Hey, welcome to the video. It's Tuesday, August 31st, and we're breaking down this massive 14-game set that we have over on DraftKings today. And let me tell you, it is looking like a good one. We have lots of good pitching options, whether it be up top, in the middle, or down low. And we have quite a few good stacks to talk about in really good spots as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to breaking this one down. And if you do find this video helpful in any way possible, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. If you want to take that one step further, become an official member over on Patreon. Link is down below in the description for that. And last but not least, this video is sponsored by PrizePicks. I'm sure most of you know what it is by now, but if you don't, it's daily fantasy sports simplified, just you versus the projections. There's no sharks, 150 max contests, or salary cap restrictions, or anything like that. Just you versus the price of the offer each and every single day. And as of right now, if you're a new signee over on PrizePicks, you can get a free money bonus. That's an instant deposit match up to $100 when you use code CPEN and tell them I sent you. But I think that's it for the plugs for the most part. So without further ado, let's dive into today's video. And as always, we'll start with the pitchers, then move on to the bats. And like I said, there's a lot of good pitching options today. I only have 5 listed here just because of time purposes, but there's definitely some other options if you don't like any of these 5 that I talk about. But we'll start top here with Walker Buehler, $10,500. He has been Mr. Consistent all season long. I will say his xFIP and SIERA about a run and a half higher than his ERA, which means he's due for some regression, but even then his xFIP and SIERA aren't really anything to complain about. He gets an okay matchup here versus Atlanta. There's definitely a lot of power in this lineup, although they can strike out quite a bit. A 3.4 and 5 implied team total against him. Pretty heavy favorite pitching at home, and a 7K prop over in Vegas. And if we're looking at his numbers in the season, like I said, a very sparkling, shiny ERA of 2.02. The xFIP's around 3.5, same for the SIERA, but over a 27% K rate. He limits the walks. Only 2.2 walks per 9, limits the power, gets a good amount of ground balls, limits the homers, limits the hard contact. Like Walker Buehler, I know this isn't the most ideal matchup in the world versus Atlanta, but I think he's going to be just fine here. It feels like he scores 20 plus points each and every single game, and with the Dodgers offense being so amazing, there's always a good chance he can get that 4.1 bonus as well. So I realize he's a bit expensive here, but I definitely have Walker Buehler in my player pool tonight at pitcher. And then dropping on Lance McCullers, $10,100. He draws a much better matchup here versus Seattle team that will definitely strike out quite a bit, whether it be versus lefties or righties. About a 3.5 implied team total against him. Pretty heavy favorite, 6.5K prop over in Vegas. And if we're looking at his numbers on the season, they're not quite as good, a 3.3 ERA, but a 3.67 xFIP and a 3.96 SIERA aren't exactly too far off of Walker Buehler's. He will walk a lot of guys, though. He has about double the walks that Walker Buehler has, but a pretty nice 28% K rate. He gets a lot of ground balls, 55% ground ball rate, limits the power, limits the homers, only a 28% fly ball rate, limits the hard contact. And like I said, Seattle's a team that will strike out quite a bit versus right-handed pitching over 25% of the time, so I don't think he's as safe of an option as Walker Buehler, but the matchup is definitely there, and he definitely has a pretty high ceiling, so I like him as a pivot off of what should be a chalkier Walker Buehler tonight. Dropping down to Brandon Woodruff, $9,400. I like this price point quite a bit. And a similar spot to Corbin Burnes last night, where Brandon Woodruff has been an excellent pitcher for the most part all season long, but the Giants are a very loaded offense. They will strike out a little bit versus righties, and it's kind of a power-on-power matchup here. Last night, Corbin Burnes went out. He had a pretty good game. Didn't give up any runs, I believe, last time I looked. And you got to be careful here, because if we're looking at the Giants' splits versus right-handed pitching this season, yes, they do strike out around 25.5% of the time, but they have a 200 ISO, 324 OBP, 331 WOBA, and a 108 WRC plus versus righties. But at the same time, this is not a good matchup for the Giants' offense, as Brandon Woodruff has been excellent so far this season with around a 30% K rate, only a 6% walk rate, limits the power, gets a lot of ground balls, only a 25% hard contact rate. And he's coming off an excellent game in his last start versus Cincinnati Reds, so I like the recent form that he's in, because the starts before that weren't exactly too great, so hopefully he's turning the corner once again. But I think Woodruff is definitely a solid option here. There's no implied team total yet for the Giants. If I had to guess, we're probably going to be in the upper 3s to low 4s would be my assumption, but at $9,400, I definitely think Woodruff is going to be in play. Then dropping out Lucas Giolito, $8,800. He's probably your cash game play today. Obviously, you have to pick 2 pitchers, but I do think Lucas Giolito will be the highest owned pitcher of the bunch here. Only a 3.3 implied team total against him. Pretty heavy favorite, 7K prop, did okay in his last matchup versus the Toronto Blue Jays, which is a lot tougher matchup than what the Pittsburgh Pirates are going to be today, because the Pirates have pretty much no good offensive players at this point. They have zero power whatsoever. Looking at their splits versus right-handed pitching this season, they don't strike out too much, around 22.3% of the time, but only a 129 team ISO, a 292 WOBA, and an 82 WRC+. Like, those are absolutely abysmal numbers. So I think Giolito, while he can be a bit hit or miss this year, is certainly going to be in play for me with this 28.3% K rate. Plus his ERA, xFIP, and SIERA all really close to each other, around 3.6, which is not that bad. The problem is he allows a little bit of power at 190 ISO, but again, Pittsburgh doesn't have any power whatsoever. So $8,800, He's a very heavy favorite. Love the White Sox stack today, one of the absolute best stacks on the entire slate. So I think we'll get that 4.1 bonus at $800. I definitely think he's going to be the top option here, point per dollar wise. Then dropping down to Blake Snell here, $7,700. I like the price point. I love the recent form. The strikeouts have been up for him the past month now. He's been playing very good baseball, although he's a bit risky because he's a guy that doesn't typically get too deep into the games. I mean, he's never really had the best command. He's got a 13% walk rate on the season, which is terrible, but close to a 3% K rate. Like I said, the strikeouts have been there for him the past month now. The xFIP's below 4, which is better than his ERA, around 4.6. The Sierra's in the low 4s. He doesn't give up too much power. Does have a lean to the ground balls, but I hate that 13% walk rate. It can definitely get you into a lot of trouble, and plus the Diamondbacks are a lot better team versus lefties than they are versus righties. If you're looking at their splits this season, I mean, Chris Paddock had a very nice time versus them last night. I was kind of scared recommending him, but it ended up working out, fortunately enough. But as you can see, their splits versus lefties are a lot better compared to righties. Versus righties, an 80 WRC plus, well below 300, 135 team ISO, and close to a 25% K rate. Versus lefties, we're only at 21.6% K rate, a 164 team ISO, a 324 WOBA, and a 100 WRC plus. So definitely not a big fan of that, but Blake Snell's K rate around 30% definitely makes me interested, and only $7,700 plus a team total below 4 against him. Decently heavy favorite here in a 7K prop over in Vegas. I think at his price point, he is definitely in play for me tonight. But as far as pitching goes, I think that'll be just about it. Like I said, there's some other options that I think are interesting, like Austin Gomber tonight, but just for the sake of time, I think we'll move on over to today's stacks. We'll start up top here with the Toronto Blue Jays at home in the Rogers Center versus the lefty Keegan Aiken. He was not very good, and plus we'll probably see a lot of the Orioles bullpen as well, which is obviously not very good either. So great spot for the Blue Jays. Team total close to 6.25, which is the highest on the slate currently, and this lineup is absolutely loaded. There is barely any easy outs here. Even the bottom of the order, Kevin Smith has some upside. Alejandro Kirk, like this is a very tough lineup to get outs in. George Springer returned yesterday. He was productive, had around 16 fantasy points. He's below 5K leading off. He's one of the top plays on the slate today. If you're playing cash games, I'd have a hard time not playing George Springer because he has plenty of power versus lefties, and all the righties grade out very, very well. Marcus Semien and Vlad, he went double dong yesterday. He's just super expensive, but if you had the money for him, it's kind of hard to leave him off in full stacks. Bo Bichette, Teoscar Hernandez, Randall Grichuk, Gurriel, Alejandro Kirk, Kevin Smith, like all these guys are in play. I realize it can get a little bit pricey when you get guys like Vladin and Semien and Bo Bichette, but if you can find some cheap stacks or just some cheap one-offs to make this work, or if you go Giolito and Blake Snell, you'll have plenty of money to be able to fit in a whole Blue Jay stack here. So definitely like them quite a bit, and they are personally my favorite stack on the slate tonight. Then moving on over to the Chicago White Sox, they are at home versus Bryce Wilson, who, just to put it simply, is not a very good pitcher, giving up over a 200 ISO on the season. We have a team total north of 5.5 today, and this is a loaded lineup very similar to the Toronto Blue Jays, where there's not many easy outs whatsoever. Like, just look down the order. Tim Anderson, Robert, Abreu, Jimenez, Moncada, Grandal recently returned, Cesar Hernandez, Andrew Vaughn, Leury Garcia. Like, there is no easy outs whatsoever in this lineup. A lot of these guys have a ton of power in their bats. If I had to pick my favorite plays, I would say Luis Robert at $4,200. I said this in the other video the other day. Yeah, he reminds me of Michael Brantley. Not like they're the same exact hitters or anything, but they're both on really good spots in the order. They're on loaded offenses, and they're considerably cheaper than their teammates. Like $4,200 compared to Anderson being at $5,400, Abreu at $5K, Eloy Jimenez at $4,800. Like, it just seems a little bit too cheap, in my opinion. He went double dong on Sunday, I believe, and I mean, I like him quite a bit here. The guy's a fantastic bat, but this entire lineup is going to be in play. But I think for cash game purposes, a guy like Luis Robert definitely grades out pretty well for me. And over to the New York Yankees, they did some damage last night, and they get another good spot here versus Jaime Barria, a very low strikeout pitcher on 12.5% K rate this season, close to a 200 ISO given up, close to a 40% hard contact rate allowed, and his ERA and xFIP are both above 5. So I definitely like the Yankees quite a bit. Plus the Angels bullpen is not very good either. We have a team total north of 5 here, and this entire lineup is going to be in play for me. DJ LeMahieu makes sense leading off. Anthony Rizzo, once again, is just way too cheap. I'm not sure what it is, but I think DraftKings hates two-hole hitters. Like, Robert's always cheap, Anthony Rizzo is super cheap, and Michael Brantley's always cheap. I'm not sure what it is. We'll have to find the other two-hole hitters, but I don't know why. I just don't seem to price these guys up very much. But anyway, I love Rizzo. I mean, left and righty matchup here versus a very low strikeout guy, especially versus lefties. I think that's one of the best plays on the site today. Judge can crush either lefties or righties. Stanton, I prefer versus lefties. Joey Gallo, $4,500. I think he's a similar play to Anthony Rizzo, although just a little bit more expensive. And the rest of this lineup is kind of just lineup fillers for the most part, but I do like the Yankees quite a bit today on the road, and what's been a pretty hitter-friendly park so far this season in LA. Moving on to one of my favorite cheap stacks today, we have the Minnesota Twins at home versus Zach Davies with a team total of 5.3, and once you factor in their price points, they're definitely one of the best point per dollar option stacks on the entire slate. Luis Arraez leading off here, $3,000. He's batting above 300 this season, and he's only 3K leading off. Byron Buxton, another two-hole hitter who is way too cheap. Byron Buxton should be like a 5K player. I know he hasn't played for a while. He came back recently, hasn't really done anything so far. But on the season, The guy's batting around 360 with close to a 500 WOBA and close to a 400 ISO with a 217 WRC plus, and he's only $3,200 with a team total of 5.3. Batting second, I realize Zach Davies is not the worst pitcher ever, but he's still a guy we can attack here. I love that price point quite a bit. I imagine Buxton will be very chalky once again. Jorge Polanco, switch hitter. Josh Donaldson's got power versus lefties or righties. Max Kepler batting fifth here. We know he's got power versus righties. Miguel Sano, he's either strikeout or homer. Although I will say he actually has been playing pretty well recently. Nick Gordon, Ryan Jeffers, and Dalton Simmons kind of lineup fillers for the most part. But I think the Twins at these price points are definitely a good way to be able to afford expensive pitching and an expensive stack with them. Like, you could easily go like 2 decently high spend-up pitchers today, get the Blue Jays in, then throw in some cheap Twins, and you can certainly make that work and have a pretty good lineup overall. Then dropping down to the Oakland A's here, they're going to be the last thing I want to talk about, and they're only a tournament stack for me, although there is a couple guys I like for cash games quite a bit, like Yan Gomes. I love that spot versus a lefty for cash purposes. Same goes for Josh Harrison, especially if he is leading off second base and shortstop eligible. But the rest of these guys are really only for tournaments for me, because Skubal has actually been really good for the past month now. The strikeouts are up. The thing is, though, he definitely struggles with power, fly balls, hard contact, and homers to righties, and there's quite a few righties in this lineup. There's only one lefty projected, and even then, that lefty Matt Olson has hit left-handed pitching very, very well this season. So I think it's going to be a bit of a boom or bust spot here for the Oakland A's. They're on the road in Detroit, not exactly the best hitting park ever, but I mean, Oakland isn't either, and I think we'll be just fine. Plus, the Detroit bullpen isn't exactly the most exciting thing out there. So I think we can definitely do some damage here. Team total close to 5 today, but like I said, more of a tournament stack only for me, with guys like Josh Harrison, Yan Gomes, like really good for me in cash games. Then obviously all the righties profile pretty well, and I wouldn't leave off Matt Olson. Like, Matt Olson is going to have 0 ownership today, but he's actually kind of crushed left-handed pitching so far this season. If you're looking at his numbers, he's batting 285 with a 414 WOBA, 346 ISO, 171 WRC plus, and only a 19.9% K rate with a 1,000 OPS versus lefties. People are not going to want to play him because it's a lefty-on-lefty spot, but I mean, if you're looking for the ultimate tournament play today, Matt Olson does not look too bad. But with that being said, I think that'll be pretty much it for the video. So I hope it was helpful, and if it was, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. If you want to take that one step further, become an official member over on Patreon. Link is down below in the description for that. And don't forget, this video was sponsored by PrizePicks. It's just you versus the projections. And as of right now, if you're new signing over there, you can use code CPENN to get a free money bonus up to $100 when you tell them I sent you. But I think that'll be pretty much it. I will stop rambling, and I'll see you guys all in the next video on Wednesday.